What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alright, so, Numbers chapter 3. We went through the first two chapters, and unsurprisingly, given the name of the book, it was all about numbers. More specifically, delineating the different tribes of the Israelites and, how many people were in each, more specifically, how many men from each tribe could essentially be part of a standing army for them as they travel to the promised land. And then I think chapter 2 was more so saying where the tribes would camp out relative to the tabernacle, and also what order they would travel in. So I think that's kind of the lowdown on things so far. So let's dive right in. Numbers chapter 3. This is the family line of Aaron and Moses, as it was recorded when the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. The names of Aaron's sons were Nadab, the oldest, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These sons of Aaron were anointed and ordained to minister as priests. But Nadab and Abihu died in the Lord's presence in the wilderness of Sinai when they burned before the Lord the wrong kind of fire, different than he had commanded. Since they had no sons, this left only Eleazar and Ithamar to serve as priests with their father Aaron. So, that's just kind of background on the priests and their a little bit of their lineage. I think it's going to get a little bit more into that as we progress through this section. But kind of rewinding back to the deaths of Nadab and Abihu, which left only Aaron and two of his sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, which it's implied, I would say, that those are the two youngest sons. It says specifically Nadab is the oldest, so if you're starting with the oldest and they're not in alphabetical order, you would assume they're in order of birth, which again leads to the conclusion that Eleazar and Ithamar were the youngest of Aaron's sons. So, verse 5. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Call forward the tribe of Levi and present them to Aaron the priest to serve as his assistants. They will serve Aaron and the whole community, performing their sacred duties in and around the tabernacle. They will also maintain all the furnishings of the sacred tent, serving in the tabernacle on behalf of all the Israelites. Assign the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They have been given from among all the people of Israel to serve as their assistants. Appoint Aaron and his sons to carry out the duties of the priesthood, but any unauthorized person who goes too near the sanctuary must be put to death." Okay, so obviously, with how many people there were among the Israelites, I mean, there were over 600,000 just able-bodied men between the ages of 20 and 60 or something like that. That's not including all the people by a long shot. So, with that many people needing to offer sacrifices and whatnot, yeah, there's no way Aaron and his two sons were going to be able to do everything necessary. So, the Lord, knowing that, assigned the tribe of Levi as other assistants to help. It doesn't say that they were authorized to, do any of the offerings or sacrifices or rituals or whatever. But they could have at least helped with, setting up and tearing down the tabernacle, perhaps, with sorting out the other people as to, who was ritually clean and able to go in and make their offerings and whatnot, and perhaps take care of some of those other procedures related to the laws that we read back in Leviticus and Exodus. But let's double check footnotes here. Tabernacle, just Hebrew, says tent of meeting. And footnote there also says tent of meeting. So the sacred tent there was just another way of referring to the tabernacle, or at least like the physical coverings of the tabernacle. But anyway, so we got the priests, we've got kind of assistants for them. Let's read verse 11. And the Lord said to Moses, "Look, I have chosen the Levites from among the Israelites to serve as substitutes for all the firstborn sons of the people of Israel. The Levites belong to me, for all the firstborn males are mine. On the day I struck down all the firstborn sons of the Egyptians, I set apart for myself all the firstborn in Israel, both of people and of animals. They are mine. I am the Lord." So, chosen the Levites to serve as substitutes for all the firstborn sons. So, it was kind of outlined previously that the Israelites were supposed to sort of dedicate or in some way, give their firstborn sons as a tribute to the Lord, with the option, though, of, buying them back. Actually, the very much heavily suggested buying them back. But the way this is worded makes it sound like that kind of wasn't necessary anymore. Or at least it's implied that if the Levites were not taking on this role of, helping Aaron and his sons, and, later on other priests down the line, that would have been kind of the responsibility, or what would have happened to any of those firstborn sons that perhaps weren't bought back. Again, sort of implied more so than outright stated, but you figure rather than having all the firstborn sons of everybody, of all the tribes, you just set aside one entire tribe, and that could, kind of make up the difference. But anyway, so since the Levites were not really mentioned in the previous chapters and within the official counts and whatnot, I guess now we're going to dig a little bit more into the Levites. So, verse 14. The Lord spoke again to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai. He said, "Record the names of the members of the tribe of Levi by their families and clans. List every male who is 1 month old or older." So Moses listed them, just as the Lord had commanded. Levi had 3 sons, whose names were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The clans descended from Gershon were named after 2 of his descendants, Libni and Shimei. The clans descended from Kohath were named after 4 of his descendants: Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. The clans descended from Merari were named after 2 of his descendants, Mali and Mushi. These were the Levite clans, listed according to their family groups. So, let's see here, grand total of 8 clans of the Levites, and it doesn't say that those were all of the descendants of Levi's sons. It's just saying that these were some of the names of those descendants. I guess some of the more notable ones, according to, just Israelite tradition and whatnot. I don't know for sure. Or it actually was just that, these were the names of all their sons. Either way, so we've got sort of the separation of clans of the Levites, which it makes me wonder if each clan maybe is going to have different responsibilities. But we'll just read on and see if we get any more details on that. So, verse 21. The descendants of Gershon were composed of the clans descended from Libni and Shimei. There were 7,500 males 1 month old or older among these Gershonite clans. They were assigned the area to the west of the tabernacle for their camp. The leader of the Gershonite clans was Eliasaph, son of Lael. These 2 clans were responsible to take care for the tabernacle, including the sacred tent with its layers of coverings, the curtain at its entrance, the curtains of the courtyard that surrounded the tabernacle and altar, the curtain at the courtyard entrance, the ropes, and all the equipment related to their use. So, yes, basically, to answer my previous question, each different kind of clan grouping had various responsibilities related to the tabernacle. And this is also kind of talking about where they camped related to the tabernacle. Also mentioned how many men 1 month old or older. Now, I'm kind of wondering why it's a month old or older. Maybe I'm trying to remember if that had something to do with, a month was maybe the amount of time before any child could have been, dedicated to the Lord in any way or anything like that. But it's definitely not as limited as the range of, ages 20 to 60 able-bodied men. Because these are not fighting army men. These are, if anything, helpers around the tabernacle. But I don't really know if, the 1 month olds could have done too much related to that. But, perhaps they would have been raised in kind of a special way related to their assigned responsibilities with the tabernacle. Possibly. But anyway, moving along. Verse 27. The descendants of Kohath were composed of the clans descended from Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. There were 8,600 males 1 month old or older among these Kohathite clans. They were responsible for the care of the sanctuary, and they were assigned the area south of the tabernacle for their camp. The leader of the Kohathite clans was Elizaphan, son of Uzziel. These 4 clans were responsible for the care of the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, the various articles used in the sanctuary, the inner curtain, and all the equipment related to their use. Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, was the chief administrator over all the Levites, with special responsibility for the oversight of the sanctuary. Okay, so now we've got, this set of clans. Wonder what the footnote is there at the number. Some Greek manuscripts read 8,300 instead of 8,600. Interesting. But I guess 8,600 might have been more so from older Hebrew manuscripts, which would make more sense as to why they would use that. That gets into a little bit of the complexities of trying to, translate the Bible and even get back to the earliest possible documents, the earliest writings of the Bible, because it's very old. So all the Kohathite clans were supposed to care for the sanctuary. So we had the Gershonite clans basically taking care of most of the coverings for the tabernacle and, the things that would have held up the coverings. Meanwhile, the Kohathite clans seem to be responsible for, the inner sanctuary, aka the Holy of Holies, and everything related to that. And with that being, the focal point of the tabernacle, it makes sense that, one of Aaron's sons would actually have direct oversight of those things, of taking care of that. But anyway, I'm making this quite long so far, so let's continue. Verse 33. The descendants of Merari were composed of the clans descended from Mali and Mushi. These were 6,200 males, 1 month old or older, among these Merarite clans. They were assigned to the area north of the tabernacle for their camp. The leader of the Merarite clans was Zuriel, son of Abihail. These 2 clans were responsible for the care of the frames supporting the tabernacle, the crossbars, the pillars, the bases, and all the equipment related to their use. They were also responsible for the posts, the courtyard, and all their bases, pegs, and ropes. So, I'm also trying to remember, Gershonite clans were to the west, Kohathite clans were to the south, and then Merarite clans got north. Although I'm sure there could have been some kind of overlap or spreading to one direction or another. It doesn't directly account for east of the tabernacle, though. But I'm sure they had some sort of plan for that. Okay. Actually, I think it's about to get into that, so let's continue on. Verse 38. The area in front of the tabernacle, in the east toward the sunrise, was reserved for the tents of Moses and of Aaron and his sons, who had the final responsibility for the sanctuary on behalf of the people of Israel. Anyone other than a priest or Levite who went too near the sanctuary was to be put to death. When Moses and Aaron counted the Levite clans at the Lord's command, the total number was 22,000 males, 1 month old or older. Okay, so that answers who was to the east. That might have been like the main entrance of the tabernacle, which would make sense then why you would have sort of the most important people related to its usage camped out there. But that still didn't really seem to... Although I guess, if the Gershonites were taking care of, the curtains around the courtyard and the entrance and whatnot. I mean, the only other thing that would have been in the courtyard, if I recall correctly, was the one altar where some of the offerings were made. Verse 40. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Now count all the firstborn sons in Israel who are 1 month old or older, and make a list of their names. The Levites must be reserved for me as substitutes for the firstborn sons of Israel. I am the Lord. And the Levites' livestock must be reserved for me as substitutes for the firstborn livestock of the whole nation of Israel." So Moses counted the firstborn sons of the people of Israel, just as the Lord had commanded. The number of firstborn sons who were 1 month old or older was 22,273. Which, wouldn't you know, is really close to the total number of males 1 month old or older from the Levite clans. Which is why the Levites were the substitute there. So this actually has me thinking more on our conversation of Jesus, because, just as the Levites were kind of serving as substitutes for the firstborn sons of Israel, Jesus is first human born anyway, son of God, first son of God anyway, throughout all of eternity. So Jesus being the firstborn of God gives extra significance, because there was that idea of, dedicating the firstborn son to God in some way or another. So God then dedicated his firstborn to essentially pay that penalty and be that representative for our own sins and the punishment that was due to us. You see, this is another reason I love going back and reading through the Bible and having these discussions, because it sheds a whole new light on other things within the Bible that, like, maybe you just didn't connect those dots before, or, think of a certain verse in that kind of way. Moving on, verse 44. And I'll probably just read through the end of the chapter then. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Take the Levites as substitutes for the firstborn sons of the people of Israel, and take the livestock of the Levites as substitutes for the firstborn livestock of the people of Israel. The Levites belong to me. I am the Lord. There are 273 more firstborn sons of Israel than there are Levites. To redeem these extra firstborn sons, collect 5 pieces of silver for each of them, each piece weighing the same as the sanctuary shekel, which equals 20 gerahs. Give the silver to Aaron and his sons as the redemption price for the extra firstborn sons." So Moses collected the silver for redeeming the firstborn sons of Israel who exceeded the number of Levites. He collected 1,365 pieces of silver on behalf of these firstborn sons of Israel, each piece weighing the same as the sanctuary shekel. And Moses gave the silver for the redemption to Aaron and his sons, just as the Lord had commanded. I forget if this was sort of the redemption price mentioned in a previous book and chapter, as far as, the price to be paid for redeeming firstborn sons that were supposed to be dedicated to the Lord. But it could very well be that price, which would then make sense why that was what was needed to redeem the extras that went beyond the number of Levites. Footnote there, 5 pieces. It just said 5 shekels, and probably wouldn't have had that parenthetical about the weight of the sanctuary shekel because it just said 5 shekels in the Hebrew. And again, shekels there of silver. Shekels were basically just a weight measurement for the Israelites, aka Hebrews. So it was just the way that they made their pieces, of silver or whatever, had a certain weight to it by default, kind of like we do with our currencies, whether coins or whatever. But anyway, I guess that kind of covers it for the chapter. So, basic summary, getting into the Levites and how they were essentially serving as substitutes, being dedicated to God in place of the firstborn sons of all of Israel. Okay, so that does it for this one. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description to get info on social media pages and how to find and follow those and all that kind of stuff. And leave comments below there with any thoughts you have. So that's it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.